All right, guys. So in this module, we've looked through different plans that people have used, and some things and some guidelines that they've put in place when they're designing a project-based learning experience. I wanted to share with you my process and what I've used in the past, what both myself in the classroom and my staff, in order for us to create good project-based learning experiences for our students. So where I like to start is building it, because if you build it correctly, the students will come and they will get a lot more out of the project, enjoy it more, and you'll feel more successful as a teacher if you take the time to build a good project. Now, that's not to say that the first time you do it, it's going to be knock it right out of the park, but if you start with a good foundation and you have a good idea of where you want to go and what you want the students to learn, it's definitely going to make your project more successful in the long run. So, to me personally, no matter whether it's a project based learning experience or a problem based learning experience, I always start in the same place, and that is with the standards. What do I want the students to know? We start with whatever a core concept is with those standards, and we try to work in as many standards as we can to integrate and to hit as many different subject areas. That would make sense without muddying the waters or making the project too big or take too long to do. We're still working in the elementary field, so I know that they're capable of a lot, and I've seen them accomplish a lot of things. But really, in the grand scheme of things, we've never gone into any projects that are going to last more than a quarter, than 9 weeks. So we just keep that in mind as we're planning. We try to work in as much as we can, but we don't overdo it and turn it into something that's going to be a year-long project, or something that they're going to lose interest in and kind of fizzle out. We follow the same sort of cycle that we use in our PLCs as we build our plans, and I'll kind of go over that real quick and what it looks like as we're building these project-based learning experiences. So here's our PLC cycle, our guiding questions that lead us through our PLC process. And really, it's within this cycle that we start brainstorming about or coming up with ideas of what the students will create. So when we're looking at what exactly do we expect all the students to learn, this is where we're coming up with those things. Okay, if this is what they're going to learning, how are we going to get them to demonstrate their learning, and what kind of ideas do we have? Like, what can the students create? What's that guiding question of why they want to learn these things, and how are we going to know that they've learned it? We work with scales a lot, and we think about the products that they're going to create, or what it is they're going to do, and how will that demonstrate these things. So we design those scales, those rubrics, those expectations on the how will we know when they've learned it. And then we go into the how are we going to teach it? What is it that we're going to do? How are we going to lay out this project step by step? What are the guiding questions? How are we going to engage them in the critical thinking and find those real life contexts? So to reflect a little bit, we start with the standards. We follow that PLC cycle, basically, which is summed up by the what do we want the students to learn? How will they know if they've learned it? And how are we going to teach it? And then we move on to the scales and rubrics and requirements, as I was going over a second ago. So we use scales and rubrics a lot to plan out the how will we know that they've learned it. And this is where the creative juices start flowing. Well, what if they did this? And maybe they could make that. We could enter in this contest. A lot of the times these start with things that are already online. We had within our county, they do a recycling video contest every year. And a lot of project-based learning experiences have come from that, because we kind of have that as our guiding question or guiding thought. Like, how can we make a difference, or how can we make a product that's going to change people's minds as far as recycling is concerned? And then our unit just kind of spirals and comes from that. What I would recommend is that you make sure that your expectations are clearly spelled out to the students, that they know exactly what they need to do. Not so much that it's going to restrain them in their creative thinking, but enough that they know what you're expecting from them. Keep in mind that it's okay if it's not perfect. Okay, as we were saying, we're working through this process. There's things that are going to work. There's things that aren't. It's always good to be able to reflect when you're done. And if you have a peer teacher or somebody that can kind of look back and say, "Oh yeah, that was great. I saw your students doing this," or you guys can share experiences and see how it worked between your different classes. And then while I'm working through this process, while I'm planning out these units, there's a few resources that I found particularly useful, so I thought I would point some of them out here in this presentation. First of all, there's a couple good books that I really enjoyed. There's this project-based learning book by William Bender, and this Thinking Through Project-Based Learning by Jane Krause and Susie Boss. You'll see this referenced a lot within these modules. This book, Open by David Price, just kind of helps you think about the way that education is kind of changing in the way it looks now and the way life has really changed. Attack of the Killer Video Book. This one is great as far as teaching students on an elementary level how to do filmmaking, how to frame shots and use tripods and pan different shots and things like that. So it's really helpful. It puts it on their level, and it's a fun read. CPALMS is where we get our Florida state standards. So you might want to find the standards that are relevant to your district, your county, your state. Pinterest, good source for some jumping off ideas. Teachers Pay Teachers, another good resource to use. And my favorite is the students. Sometimes the students come up with the best ideas. They know of the contests, they know what they're interested in, and they really can help to guide your project-based learning experiences and planning. So I hope this helped to kind of lay out some of my steps and some of the things that I follow when I'm planning out a project-based learning experience. And hopefully this helps to give you guys some ideas of what to include in your plan as you're thinking about the steps that you want to follow when you're building a project-based learning experience. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.